the second part of this analysis is going to look at how do we put these effects into an aggregate demand, aggregate supply framework and see the macro implications. Now, just to review very quickly, the tariff, if we increase tariffs broad-based so they affect the whole economy, that should increase the cost of imports. We're going to assume, for simplicity, that it affects imports but not exports. So imports should fall. That alone should increase net exports. Because consumers are buying more domestically and less from abroad, overall this increases aggregate demand. The second effect, however, is that those imports are also key production factors, and this increase in cost raises the cost of production and should lower aggregate supply, at least in the short run. So putting those two into an aggregate supply, aggregate demand diagram, we start with our long run aggregate supply. Don't forget the short run aggregate supply depends on the price of a key input and price expectations. So I'm going to call this price of a key input. Okay. Secondly, aggregate demand depends on a range of things, including net exports. I won't list them all because it gets long. So we imagine a world starting in full employment where we are in equilibrium. And in equilibrium, the short run aggregate supply is here, aggregate demand is here. Short run aggregate supply depends on primarily the expected price level. So everybody right now is expecting this price level. They're facing a current price of a key input, let's say steel, aluminum, and so on, which are imported, and aggregate demand is right here at its current level of output, input, consumption, investment, government spending, net exports, and so on. Now, effect number one decreases imports and boosts net exports, which increases aggregate demand. And we will just label that so we can see what changed in aggregate demand. It was the net export piece that boosted. That alone would increase and boost the economy, pushing us out. Okay? So that alone should increase output. This increase in output should be associated with a drop in unemployment. All pretty good. The price level should rise. And that's sort of the goal and the hope of policymakers sometimes in implementing tariffs. Wow, if we decrease imports, it shifts domestic consumption to domestic goods, is a boost for the domestic economy, increases aggregate demand, grows the economy, lowers unemployment. Yes, the price level went up a little bit, but hey, if more people have jobs, more production is happening, the benefits outweigh the costs. On the other cost side piece is that if your industries rely a lot on the imports for production, then this also raises their cost of production, which means they have to decrease production on the margin and cut supply. So, I'm going to draw it so that we imagine we come back to the long run aggregate supply curve. This is sort of the best case scenario. What's changed between these two? It's this key input price that we've raised. So this has not changed. But the key input price has gone up. Okay? So this is the factor 2 that's being driven, and this was factor 1. So then come back. What's the result of this effect? Well, this decrease in supply decreases output from where it was and puts us back on the long run aggregate supply curve. In the best world, we're now in a situation where, yes, we expanded, output then contracted, so overall we're back where we started, we just have higher prices. Now, higher prices are a cost to everybody in the economy. And it would make sense. What we've done is we've forced people through a tariff to not buy foreign goods because we made them more expensive. So instead of buying this shirt, which is probably made in Asia somewhere, I instead buy domestic shirts, which are more expensive to make because American labor is more expensive. So from a policy perspective, you may say that's good. Fine, we pay a little more, but they're American workers making the goods. Output's the same. We're all just off as well off as we were before, without a little bit higher prices. The next effect